The time is 11:30. Yay! So thank you everyone for being here, taking time out of your very busy schedules to have this very important conversation with us. My name is Sanjita Pradhan. I am Program Director of Talent Development here at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Work with our talent development team under the leadership of Mary Bontrager, who's sitting on the back here. So just want to give you very few things to start us off, and we have an awesome panel and awesome discussion in front of us. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but I want to thank our Inclusion Council members and some of our committee members who've put this together today. Marvin DeJere, obviously, Evelyn Davis Center has been very wonderful to us. We had an amazing event last week here, and our next event is also going to be here on March 26th. So thank you to Evelyn K. Davis Center, all the staff. I know it takes more time and effort for you all to bring us here, so thank you. I also want to make an announcement that we are live streaming this event today. I don't know, I think our internet is not so good. Mike, how are we doing on internet? But thank you. Welcome to... But welcome to folks who are joining us online today. It is going to be recorded just in case our live streaming is not working too well. It will be available for all of us to have it in a recorded format. It will be on our website, and it's available to all of you if you wanted to bring it back to your organization, have another lunch and learn with your employees, and so forth. So I wanted to give a little bit background on this work. So as Greater Des Moines at the Greater Des Moines Partnership, we obviously always love talking about where our community is, and we want to make this the best community in the world, and we love talking about our great rankings, which there are lots to talk about. But we also challenge ourselves to go further beyond and dig information about what are we not so good at, where are we lagging, and how can we move that needle? So this is one of those efforts in our diversity and inclusion area where our council members continue to push us and work with us. This is obviously not a problem that we can solve by ourselves. No entity is able to do this by themselves. So we need lots and lots of people and hands around our table. And all of you being here today is just a very remarkable testament to that. So we did work on this area for about last 5 years or so. So we started thinking about who is this community not working for? Where is that unemployment rate? Is it good for persons with disability? How are our veterans doing? How are African American community members doing? How are our foreign-born members doing, right? And so we created a toolkit, a guide that was with the help of our council members. Claudia Shable is in the room. She was involved in that initial round of conversations. Phil Hall from Wells Fargo was in our council at that time. Marvin DeJere obviously was involved in that toolkit, first format of our toolkit. So we continue to work on that toolkit to build that toolkit. So every year we're continuing to make progress and make that toolkit better. The toolkit is available in our website, dsmpartnership.com/inclusion. It's right on the front page on the right side. If you're interested, there's lots of information about the business case for diversity, and then goes into this untapped group of talent. So we are hosting 6 of these events this year. So we can have more conversation. We can bring employers in the room. We can bring community members in the room. We can bring participants who are going through this journey in the room to have a meaningful conversation. And we hope that you can take something back to your organization to think about how you can do things differently, how you can change your hiring processes, how you can be more inclusive in your organization. So I think I said I would be brief, but I maybe have gotten long. But thank you, everyone. Again, there is a quick little feedback form on your chairs. We can send it out in a SurveyMonkey format as well. But over the past few years, we've learned that it's good to get it done right here. So we would love to hear your feedback. If you don't have pens, let me know. We have lots of pens. So please feel free to turn in your feedback form somewhere on the table if you don't find anyone. But thank you, and I'd like to turn it over to Selu.
How does that sound? Can everyone hear me okay? Maybe it'd be better if the microphone went off. People usually say, you're talking, turn the microphone. My wife says that at least. So, well, welcome everybody. My name is Selu Timbo. I work for Hy-Vee. the Director of Diversity and Recruiting for Hy-Vee in year 22, and it's been a great journey and a great ride. So it's my pleasure to be here with all you guys to sit here with our panel, which we'll get into to introduce here in a second. So she mentioned the internet. So this is streaming off of that internet. So if you can, and if you can't stay off of the free Wi-Fi, please do, just to allow that to go. Hopefully the signal's good in here so where you don't need it. So we're going to have today's agenda. We're going to we've got 4 great candidate members that are going to be up here, panel members that are up here, and they're picked by design to give you some really unique, I thought it was my phone, give their unique perspective when it comes to hiring African Americans in the workforce, people with barriers, people with disabilities, folks who just may need an opportunity and a chance. And we hope that you'll be able to feel that from them. Okay, so that's, please ask questions. You'll have time at the end for Q&A. You're going to hear 4 unique stories. Some people who on here I've worked with, some I haven't, but I'm really excited to be able to bring them to you today and welcome all the feedback that you do have. So 2017, one Iowa study came out. And in that study, unemployment rates, as we saw, for the African American community, 16.7%. Overall, for the county, in Polk County, it was 3.5%. So if you look at it, there's some opportunity. In 2020, those are updated. That report was updated and was actually presented last week by Marvin. What we've seen is that unemployment rate for the county is down to 2.7%. And also for African Americans, significant improvement of 10.5, which is great. Still a lot of room for improvement though. We know that within the county, unemployment being under 3%, employers are in need of workers and can focus on finding an untapped talent pool by connecting, engaging the African American community. So today's event is designed first and foremost to network. Hear a lot of chatter, a lot of people getting to know each other and have conversations, people introducing themselves on the hall, handing a business card. That's fantastic. But then also I want you to hear from the panel. Love to hear from you guys about your unique experiences and connect and engage with each other. There's times where, we can just say, oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, I've experienced that. And conversation comes from there. Lastly, throughout today's event, and Sanjita talked a little bit about it earlier with the toolkit, but we want to help give you tools, skills, and help assist in developing the mindset to move forward on our or yours inclusion journey. So we're going to do a panel discussion here, and I have 4 panelists I'm going to introduce, and we're going to ask questions too, and just hope we can engage some conversation. First and foremost, I'm going to introduce Will Holmes. Actually, I'm going to call him Will Keeps from Starts Right Here movement. And we have Dennis Henderson from Broadlawns Medical Center. Nigas Imhotep from Urban Dreams. And last but not least, Nancy Richardson from Hy-Vee. So originally I had them send me a quick bio about them. I'm not going to read that because I wanted you to hear from them. I want them to be able to, for a minute or two, explain and talk about themselves. So we'll start here with Dennis. Dennis, if you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Dennis Henderson, and like he said, I work for Broadlawns, and we have what we call the Teach and Tech program, where we take people from the 50314 and 50316 area codes, but we include everybody, but that's where we target that area code. And we get you your CNA certificates, your basic and advanced. And what we do that a lot of companies don't do, we transition you straight into a job. So if you complete our training, then we can give you a job we offer you a job right after that. I'm a native of Des Moines, and I was born in the hospital that I now work for, which is a good thing, But back in the day, Broadlawns had a reputation for not being the best hospital in the community. And that has changed since Jody Jenner has been the CEO of that program. And a lot of things that we're going to discuss today is a primary reason why, because what we do is we made it intentional that we go out and get the talent that we're going to talk about today.
Well,
My name is Will Keeps. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I was a kid that was molested, left for dead. I've seen a lot of my friends get killed. And so today, I'm helping out a lot of youth that's going through the same thing. And some of them that not going through the same thing, they just want to be a part of that life, and they're not really that about that life. But I'm dealing with a lot of those kids. And right now, I work so hard when it came down to the hip-hop music videos. I got a bunch of kids in my music videos. I'm in the schools right now talking to a lot of kids. I got a program called The Porch, and the reason why I call it The Porch is because in Chicago, we used to always sit on the porch, talk about girls, we'll roast each other, but there was always a serious conversation to come up because we're in the hood, you know what I mean? And something always happened in the hood, and we always talk about that. And so a lot of kids, they love that communication where we don't have to have a book or curriculum in their face and stuff like that. They just want to talk. And so I decided that I wanted to get my own building. And so I worked hard, and I kept working hard. And I wound up finding a guy who helped me get my own building at downtown. And now we're going to have our own school in a sense. We partnered with Des Moines Public Schools. We're going to give kids an opportunity to, kids that are getting in trouble a lot. You know, kids that are getting suspended, they don't go home, they come to us. Kids that are getting in trouble with the law, they don't go home. You know what I'm saying? If they can't go back to more public schools, they don't go home. They come to us. We want to give those kids like a third chance, you know, to really do something with their life. And for a black man with a do-rag on his head to have his own building, his own school, I'm giving them hope. I'm giving them something they can believe in. It is not just with blacks. It's with lost kids, lost people, period. And so, the nonprofit is called Starts Right Here because I'm ready to start over.
Hello, I'm Nagusa Motep, aka Claire Ruderson. I work as a workforce and educational coordinator at Urban Dreams. I'm also a deferred expulsion case manager with the Des Moines Public Schools. I deal with kids who had issues with firearms, drugs, or physical confrontations that cause some alert at the. Okay, so I'll pick this up. Okay, I deal with the youth who are in trouble with correctional systems, and there's a need for a lot of help here in Des Moines, especially with Iowa being the second worst place in the United States for African Americans to live in. Roughly 2,400 out of every 100,000 people of African descent are locked up here in this state. We only have roughly 120,000 total for the entire state. So we are in a pickle right here in Iowa, and there's a need for change. I'm a doctoral candidate at North Central University, working on my dissertation right now on hiring nonviolent African American ex-offenders, phenomenological investigation into employment discrimination. And the issue here is that employers are looking, they claim that they're looking to hire other people, but we have to do something about looking at the issue of segregation, which is still here in education and in the workplace. And if we're talking about creating a new environment and using innovative ideas, we have to generate new cultures in these businesses and open up your arms and ears to people who are not like you. And that's what we're here for, to enlighten you, to let you know that there are people that are out here who are looking for employment when most of the employers say that they can't find anyone.
Hi, I'm Nancy Richardson. I'm Human Resource Manager at the West Lakes Hy-Vee in West Des Moines. I've been with Hy-Vee for 40 years. I'm also born and raised in Des Moines. I have worked with the House of Mercy. I've also worked with Bridges, and I really welcome anyone that just wants to work and work hard. And I'm pretty proud of that. I think we do a really good job in my store. And I've been with Hy-Vee for 40 years, worked my way up, and became the human resource manager without a college education, so really anything's possible.
And what Nancy didn't mention is that she had to work with me for a year.
Well, I was trying to be nice.
You remember those? I was trying to be nice, she says.
You brought me here for a reason, so.
No. Everyone's here for a reason, and we
Yeah.
appreciate all you guys being on the panel today. And so we'll get going on questions. And again, this is just free thought. And please, everyone else, if the question is directed at you, please, if you feel like you have something to say, chime in. It'll be good. So I'm going to start with you, Will. You spend a lot of time mentoring youth. You also spend a lot of time working with many different organizations and agencies. I know I personally see you on social media and LinkedIn just making connections and genuine relationships all the time. To bridge a gap, right? What that gap is, I'll let you decide. But with the work you do, what do you think is become the biggest stigma or the biggest barrier to employing African Americans in Des Moines?
Just so y'all know, I'm only going to speak on what I know. I'm not going to go out. I cannot speak on things that I don't understand at all. But when I talk to these kids, and since we're talking about black youth, I deal with a lot of CEO construction guys who saying they need a lot of work in the construction. They do a lot of drug testing. And a lot of these kids that I deal with smoke a lot of weed. So when it's time for them to get this job, they don't even try to go because they know they're not going to pass the drug test. And these jobs are paying like $25 to $30 an hour. I'm just talking about what I know. So when it comes down to them, what we have to do is we got to change the mindset because they're thinking that it's like some of these kids only only got one scope, when they know there's a whole bunch of different scopes out there. And it drives me crazy sometimes because I know that we can change a lot when it comes down to the black community because there are jobs out there. And because that drug is so popular in our community that they're losing out on actually getting that type of job. So we just gotta change the mindset, let them understand that it's very important that if you wanna have a beautiful family, you want purpose in your life, you want your kids to see things that are positive, even though being in a positive home don't always bring out a positive kid. But I'd rather go that level, that route first, than them seeing the negative home. But we just got to change the mindset and let them know that it's cool to go to work, that it's cool to not skip steps, is to take the necessary steps to have that career.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah. One of the biggest stigma, and because I work so closely with HR, is media. Because a lot of employers are getting their perception from the TV, a lot of times our news is saturated with all these negatives. So when you watch the news in the morning and you see several people come on the news and all the articles is about killings, stabbings, shootings, robbings, and all this. So the perception that a lot of white folks get that employ black folks or minorities is that this is how this culture is. And this is the only thing about this culture. But what we have to understand is, even if it's between the ages of 18 and 36, 25% people are in some form attached to the correctional system. 75% of those people are doing well. And we never focus on the people that are doing well. We tend to lead out, so it's the media. We're getting our perceptions from the media, and that's what we're running with.
Well, I'd like to concur with what Dennis stated, because there's a need really for cultural competency training. And there's, historical issues that we have to deal with. Because looking at the issue of African Americans in this country, African Americans just didn't come here through Ellis Island. We were incarcerated and brought here in chains to work here in this country for free. And this system was created not for black men to formulate wealth, because we were one time the property. Chase, Manhattan Bank, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, all of them got their start off the transatlantic slave trade. And that's why they're economically in power. So what we're dealing with is racial capitalism, and we're walking in the face of white supremacy and white privilege. There has to be a change if you say you want to include. Because I hear the term inclusion, diversity, and equity, and I'm hearing it so much it seems like a bona fide dog whistle. People talk about diversifying and doing these things, but when you go into their businesses, you don't see nothing but 90% white. And then they say, oh, we want a diverse culture. We want a diverse group of people. But if you, from where I was taught, if you want a friend, you make yourself friendly, okay? If you're gonna open up the doors to some people into your organizations, you have to create a cultural environment that will conducive for other people, and talking to people who are not the dominant culture in this society. So that's one of the main issues. That's the stigma, because automatically when you say black, you almost equate black with criminal in this society. And that's the negative viewpoint that the media has placed upon us. And it's been going on for a long time. You can go back to the early 1900s with Woodrow Wilson and G.W. Griffin, The Birth of a Nation. It's the same thing that's going on. It's just a different era.
All right, well, thank you. Good answer there. Appreciate the discussion. So I'm gonna throw a question to you, Dennis. You've worked at Broadlawns for a long time. How long?
3 years.
3 years, okay. So you've been at Broadlawns for 3 years. You do a lot of great work in the community. I know you work with Urban Dreams through your relationship with Wayne Ford and Isaiah now. Thinking about where you work, what would you recommend, or how do you feel about how you're perceived at work? And what I mean by that is, everyone knows to have the best employee, you need to have someone who wants to bring their full self. So if you had to let your employee know something about yourself that would help make it be more effective for you to do your job, or for you to feel more accepted at work, what would that be?
Well, it's funny because my position was, when they created the position built around my certain set of skills. I dealt with at-risk folks. When I first got out of prison, I did 25 years in prison, for y'all that don't know. So when I first got out of prison, I went to A+, and I rode 2 buses and then took a bike to get out to Ankeny by 7:30 in the morning. Then I'd had to kick a shovel for 10 hours and turn around and do that journey on back to the Fort Des Moines. When I got laid off, I hadn't worked enough quarters, so I wasn't eligible for unemployment. I went to Wayne Ford, and Wayne Ford took me under his wings. Wayne Ford did one thing that is very important. He never took me to a meeting and not allow me to speak. He always got my opinion wherever we went, no matter how big this meeting was, whether it was with the governor or whether it was with some prostitutes. He always allowed me to speak. Now, he told me he would open up doors. He could open up doors for me, but he couldn't keep me in the room. When him and Jody got together and created Teaching Tech, the program was based on my personality what I knew from my criminal background and my years out here in the streets, that I could, utilize those talents to recruit people from that environment. So our whole program was based on getting people with barriers to employment into the healthcare field, So that's the benefit that I had. They knew my background, they knew where I came from, and they were willing to take a chance on me because I'm that untapped talent that we're talking about. Usually when I go into situations, as soon as you say, robbery, penitentiary, the application goes in the trash can, but because I had people that took a chance on me, I was able to fulfill my destiny.
Do you have any success stories that over the last 3 years, some of the work you're doing that you'd like to highlight?
Well, there's a guy in the back of the room that I worked with when I did the Gateway to College. His name's Ahmed. Me and Ahmed turned that whole program around. We were working with people who were delinquents that dropped out of school, and what we were tasked with was getting them back in school, getting them college, classes, plus getting them their GEDs. And we turned that whole program around. When we went into the program, they had like 5 people who had graduated in 5 years. We got 7 or 8 people to graduate in the first year that we had did the program. So it was a substantial change. One of the things about teaching tech, this is our 8th cohort. We graduate March 5th, and we'll have 100 people that graduated from that program so far. And all of them were offered employment, but we also offer people a chance to continue to move up the rungs. So I got about 20% of those folks are probably going to college, whether it's working PRN and going to college, or they're in some form of Iowa State, University of Iowa, one of them schools. So I'm very proud of our record. We have a close to 90% graduation rate.
Fantastic. Great. It's great. And plus, you got the round of applause, so that's a tribute to your hard work and the dedication you guys are putting out there. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a question to someone about Hy-Vee. Obviously, as an employee owner, right, Nancy? So this question's for you. And I don't know if many of you know the West Lakes Hy-Vee store, but it's almost as far as west as you can get in West Des Moines, right? The store's been open a little over 20 years and probably has the most culturally diverse staff from top to bottom. I experienced this when I worked at the store too, and it was a beautiful thing. Working with Nancy, knowing that she's had a lot to attribute with that, I really want to open it up to her and just talk about some of the methods, some of the processes, and some of the unique things you've done to hire. And you can even speak, and you and I have had this conversation, and share a little bit about even those who have come in with the English language barrier, and what some of the hiring and some of the efforts you've made have helped them as individuals.
Okay. Well, it's pretty simple. I really don't have a method because everybody's just equal. I mean, it's hard to imagine why there's so much unemployment. I sent an email back to Say Lou, and I don't know if you saw it. I highlighted it. But I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could be like The Voice and interview everyone behind a wall? Because it really doesn't matter, does it? So it's hard for me to understand why there is such an issue. Because I just want to get to know a person, and when I had my very first young lady reach out to me from the House of Mercy, I sat down, and what's really interesting is I find, because I've interviewed a lot of people that have been in jail, in prison, whether from Bridges or House of Mercy, and I find it interesting because I really believe that they hold the truth. So they're going to come in and they're going to talk to me about the truth and who they are and what they've done. They're not going to be the other people that come in and talk to me about what I want to hear and how I want them to answer the question. And so for me, it just speaks to my heart. That's probably why he has me here. But It's difficult. It's difficult for me to understand. Go ahead.
I am wondering, so I hire at a local community school, and our policy is, our procedure, I should say, is if there's a prior conviction, what they've done in the past, and this is what I observed, is just call up and, you know, see what they have to say about it. And my boss said, well, we look for, you know, them to say something like, I've learned from that experience, which I think is, I disagree with, because I feel like the parole board and the Shawshank Redemption, like I'm looking for some magic words here. Why don't I just ask the candidate? Did you feel remorse? You did this thing or did that thing? What have you learned? I mean, how do you
I feel like
process them?
Why don't you repeat the question first? How do you?
And just for the live stream audience, is not in the questions we got.
okay. I think it's. I think what she's trying to ask me is how I get them to talk to me. I mean,
What's your process behind actually?
right.
And how do you get them to be open? And Tell me
I'm
what-
telling you, I really don't do anything special. I guess I feel like I treat everybody the same. I ask them, you know, I introduce myself, I shake their hands. It's what we all do, right? And then when I ask, you know, when I see the conviction, I ask them to tell me the story. And honestly, I've never had any issues. They've opened up. They've told me things that have truly shocked me because they're so raw and they don't hold back. It's really interesting. And so the first lady I was getting ready to tell you about from the House of Mercy that I hired, I didn't tell my store director because I knew if I had, he may not have agreed with my opinion. So I just took a chance. And she, it was over-the-counter drugs. She had been in a car accident. She had a severe back injury, started taking the meds, and you know how that goes, right? She ended up being arrested for robbing a pharmacy, but she didn't have a gun. She had like a water pistol and there was just something about her. And I took a chance and she was great. We hired her part-time for the gas station. She ended up being so great that my store director, still not knowing, offered her full-time. And then the next House of Mercy lady came, and the next House of Mercy lady came, and I let them tell me. It was, I think by starting that with her, the other girls knew, and the program, they were aware, and they just came and told me, they just shared their truth. And it's really hard because unfortunately the first lady that I hired is now sitting in prison, which is really sad. But that's not going to stop me from interviewing and hire other people because I may have somebody in front of me that hasn't been convicted of anything, living the perfect life, whatever that is, and they are going to leave and get maybe fired for theft. So, I mean, you don't know who's sitting in front of you. To me, it just doesn't matter.
You have the discretion to make those calls on a case-by-case basis.
I do. And my store director knows now. So I thought when my second one came, I just had to, because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into as an employer? Because we look at that. We deal with, we're in retail. We deal with the community. But it's just, he's been really open to it, and we just haven't had, it's been a good thing.
And it kind of sounds like you are instinctually making these calls as you talk to candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Is there value in the criteria you use in the process?
Not really. I mean, and I don't call anyone on anybody because I feel like, okay, so when you call one, you have to call on everybody. So I don't do that because, first of all, the only thing that we're really supposed to, so if somebody called me about an individual that used to work for us, the only thing that I'm going to tell them, I'm probably not close enough. Oh, the only thing I'm not going to tell them is, I'm going to tell them that they were employed here, and that's all I'm going to tell them. So, I mean, it's not going to do me. You just have to, I don't know, I just go with my gut and my heart. And I don't know if that's right, but like I said.
I think we should continue this. Let's open it up to everybody in the
I
audience.
have a question. Sorry. Dennis, why don't you answer that question as well on how you do it, because you also hire people with barriers and ex-offenders.
Okay, so we have a partnership with Urban Dreams, and one of the things that we did is we went out and we did what we call a double vet. So
You're good.
okay, so we do a double vet. So the first interview will happen at Urban Dreams. So what that does is puts people in a comfort zone. And one of the benefits of my job is I don't have compliance to worry about. So we can have that open and honest conversation without having to worry about, me saying this and you saying that. And that conversation can get the information we need to make sure that this candidate is going to be all right when they go to the next interview, if they make it to the next interview. But then also what we can do is we can tell them what they need to do. We can advise them now, if you do X, Y, Z, you can apply again in our next cohort, and this will increase your chances of becoming a participant in this program, if this is what you really want to do, because we're trying to get people on career paths. So that has helped quite a bit.
Question here.
I don't know if it's okay. I kind of want to redirect a little bit. I want to say that the whole of our diversity does not come from the underprivileged neighborhoods, and the piece I came looking for today is once they are hired, anyone that doesn't look like this face, right? How can we make sure everyone's moving up in management? That was my real question for today. Like, not just being sure that we hire in every space, but being sure that we're growing in every space.
It's not working, so let me holler out loud and just talk loud. It's working. It's working? Okay. Well, he said it's working. Here we go. There are, I hear people talk about colorblindness. Okay, and there's an issue with colorblindness because there's not such thing. And people need to come to the reality of that issue. What needs to go on, and what should go on, is opening doors for opportunities for people to move up in management. I have a young man that just came to Urban Dreams a couple of months ago, happened to have 3 master's degrees. He's from West Africa. He has a heavy Liberian.
3 master's degrees and a doctoral candidate that's driving a forklift right now making $16 an hour. And we're talking about untapped talent. Okay, so like I stated earlier, there needs to be a serious mindset change. That's what has to happen. If you want to diversify your workplace, you got to open up your mind to new ideas and meeting new people. I know once while I was working here at the Evelyn Davis Center, I had a gentleman and his wife, both who were from Burundi. The gentleman was a medical doctor as well as an attorney. He spoke French, but he came here to Des Moines and he was driving a forklift, a medical doctor, okay, and an attorney that spoke numerous languages. And they couldn't find nothing else for him at that particular time. So when we talk about if we really want change, some people are just xenophobic by nature, if you want to agree with it or not. Xenophobic means hatred of another group or culture. And other people are xenophilic, where they open up their arms to other cultures and say, come on in, you're welcome. we treat you like another human. And this society is xenophobic by nature. And that's what we're dealing with. So you can change policies, you can create new laws till you get cross-eyed. But changing the heart of people is a whole nother story.
I know we have a panel. I just want to add one thing to that. As someone who's been in management for 19 years, was a store manager for about 10 of those years, and in my current capacity now, I can tell you the one thing that if I had to throw out one thing that I feel is the most important when it comes to elevating those who may have a barrier or who may be token, okay, I used it, I said it, is mentorship. I feel that if you have someone who just has your back, you can confide in and just talk to about opportunities, where you want to go, they can help you get there. And I feel like that is the key to seeing more and more people of color, particularly African Americans, advancing in their line of work and their business the opportunities are endless as we see. As our world becomes more and more culturally diverse, we hope to have representation at every level, every industry, every inch of the United States and the world. So that's my opinion. I think it all starts with mentorship. Anyway, it's back to them. You guys ask questions to them.
Questions out here right now, just lined up.
Thank you very much, Isaiah. Here's a question I got. I'm waiting forward. I'm the guy's been doing this before most of y'all been born. Now, so here's the bottom line. I've been to a lot of these meetings. I'm looking at everybody. Everybody's feeling good. Just about maybe the 500 meeting I've been to, or maybe 600. And after that, you go back to your own quarters and business as usual. So I'm retired. So let's cut to the chase. I assume you all come here more than for your paycheck. I assume you come here to really make a difference. If not, you're really wasting your time. That man up there spent 25 years in the joint. He didn't tell you his other resume. Let me tell you. He was rated one of the most violent prisoners in the history of Iowa. That's Dennis up there. Let me give you the other half that he don't want to give you. Let's keep it real. Now, how many would take a chance on the man spent 25 years in prison, extra years for almost taking someone's life? Who would give a man a chance like that? Let's cut through the chase, black or white. Who want to rent an apartment next door to him if you knew his background? That's my answer. Not nobody in this room. So when you become that one person who want to take a chance, I take this man around the country now. He travels me from the White House to the outhouse. And his story is the same. Wayne gave me an opportunity, and I flipped it. So as you continue this journey, I put my 50 years in. Make sure before you die or get too old, that one of y'all got an example like Mr. Dennis Henderson. If not, you're wasting my damn time.
So I just wanted to piggyback on what, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but what Seimu just said about mentorship. The other thing is sponsorship. Sponsorship is those things that advocacy that happens when you're not in the room and behind closed doors and when decisions are being made. And what I would consider what Wayne just talked about is sponsorship. Not only was he a mentor to Dennis, but he was also Dennis's sponsor. We need sponsors.
I'm Reggie McDade with TPI Composites, but from my perspective, it has to be purposeful and has to be a commitment because you're not going to always be in that room. And you have to be willing to be that voice, be that support. And I have something written on my board that everybody's looking for an opportunity and someone to follow. And it comes down to just that. People thought that I was out of my mind when I first got here to Iowa 4 years ago because we're out in Newton. We have 48 countries represented in our facility. And I hire people with backgrounds and history because we all have a story. But we have to practice this every single day. That's just a society that we live in. So it's one of those things that if you don't have the purpose, you don't have the commitment, it goes back to what the gentleman was talking about. It doesn't happen. So for me, every day, every morning, I'm trying to make sure that we're providing that opportunity, providing that, chance for someone to have somebody to follow and make a difference. Because if we don't, we're going to leave good talent behind.
So I want to talk about that because it seemed like we skipping steps a little bit because a lot of kids that I work with, I want to go down to the kids because it starts with them. Before they get to the workforce, they got to know how to work. They got to know what it is to be a man or a woman with a family that they got to take care of. We need more people that's going to hit that angle. And once we hit that angle, because the thing is, y'all, I tell myself this all the time. I have to look just as beautiful as the drug dealer. You know what I mean when I say that? Is that when they have to choose, I want them to choose me, then choose them. But I got to look beautiful. I got to make sure I got all the resources, all the people, all the avenues, everything that I can give them that I can say, look, when I say I'm going to do this for you, it's a done deal. But the thing is, they got to understand that they have to want it as well. That's first. That's why I hit the youth hard as possible. And a lot of people don't like my method. I don't care. Me and Wayne talk. I'm going to mention Wayne again because Wayne love hearing his name. Wayne. When I first started doing this, I felt like I didn't have anybody to go to because I didn't know what I was doing. I just started building relationships. I didn't care if you was Republican. I didn't care if you was Democrat. I didn't care if you was white, black. I just started building relationships because I knew the end game was our youth. And I talked to Wayne just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And Wayne said, Will, I've been following you. And I love what you do. He said, I remind him of him. And that touched me because I'm like, I didn't even think he knew I existed. There's a lot of people out here that reached out to me and said, yo, Will, I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. And they use their resources to help me help our youth. We got to start with our youth before we get to the... Look, I can talk all day, y'all.
Can I
Go ahead.
Well, I love my brother. I'm thinking about the issue, especially what we're talking about, employment, but yet the youth. As a deferred expulsion case manager, I see young people in the school districts who are attempting to become young entrepreneurs, but they're doing it in the subterranean drug market. Okay? It's about capital. We're in a capitalist society. And when these young people who are coming from marginalized populations who have been historically subjugated, they go downtown and see pretty downtown Des Moines and all the places to eat and things to do, and they walk right by the window and can't come in because they don't have money. So they do what's necessary to survive. We see a lot of these youth are getting busted behind marijuana possession, but at the same time, our former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, is the president of the American Cannabis Association today. He's making multi-millions of dollars selling marijuana across the country and around the world. But Keyshawn on the corner trying to make some money so he can help his mama pay her rent, help to have some food on the table for their little brothers or sisters are taking matters into their own hands. They have great business minds. They just need mentorship, sponsorship, and development. And it's going to take reaching those youth, because the late Frederick Douglass made this statement. He said it's easier to develop children than to repair broken men. And now we're at a state where we're trying to repair broken men and women and giving them opportunities to come in and become a part of the dominant culture. So I open my heart and arms to people who are opening up their doors. But we need there's a lot of work to do.
Do we still have time? Okay. Real quick, work for Principal Financial Group here in town, and given that we have a major financial services sector here in Des Moines, oftentimes talk with students about careers that we have in investment operations or commercial real estate, or things when they start to hear what it's like, they're like, you know, maybe something else. That's not really for me. So I suppose my question is, given we do live in Des Moines where financial services are so prevalent, where are you seeing that financial services companies are doing a good job of making their careers relatable to students, and where do we have significant room for growth?
We got, like you said, if you want the youth, you got to go into schools. And a lot of youth and marginalized populations don't have sometimes the opportunity to see people in these professions. Right now in the United States, for African American men, 5% of the doctors in the United States are black men. If kids don't see black men being doctors, they never say, hey, I can be a doctor. If I don't see anybody in my neighborhood who's in management with Principal or one of these other organizations, how am I going to relate to them if I never see them? So we got to make ourselves presentable, not just to the people we're comfortable with. We got to go into places where people we're not comfortable with. The flag. Oh, my God. Yeah, of all the businesses here in Des Moines, downtown Des Moines, I have to commend well-marked Blue Cross Blue Shield, because of all the businesses down there. Well-marked Blue Cross Blue Shield is the only business downtown that has the red, black, and green flag flying during Black History Month. No other business, probably in this state, has that up right now. Okay? So I'm driving down the street and I see the red, black, and green. I'm like, hey, I might need to stop over there. The red, black, and green, are y'all familiar with the red, black, and green flag, everybody here? Not everybody. Well, the red, black, and green came from the Universal Negro Improvement Association that was created by Marcus Garvey back in the early 1920s. And the red stood for the blood of the people. Black stood for the people, and green for the land, Africa. And Marcus Garvey's slogan was, he knew what was going on with this segregated society. He came to the point and said that Africa was for Africans, those at home and those abroad. And if this society wasn't going to integrate you or accept you into this society, they had opportunities to get ships to go back to Africa. But well-marked Blue Cross Blue Shield has that flag right by the American flag. Anybody, you just open the door and say, oh, come in here. Nowhere else in the city. Probably nowhere else in the state. I don't know.
I wanted to just add a few comments. That was a great question, and that was a great answer. I think I just wanted to add that it's building pipeline. And he's so right. Like, there are certain professions that our kids don't see themselves in because they don't have role models. And so a lot of you have corporate donations programs where you spend your VTOs. Those are all ways where you can make sure that we're contributing to building that talent pipeline to be able to have those talent in future. So this is one to make that small plug, and I'll give it back to Mr. Mo here.
Hi, thank you. Well, you talked to us something about lots of the kids you deal with smoking weed. And well, first of all, let me tell you, I wasn't born in the United States, but one thing I noticed when I first got here is that the way it's interpreted, if it's a black kid smoking weed and a white kid smoking weed, it's two different ways. You know, I noticed the white kid was sort of like hippie looking. Yeah, like, and it's not too bad, but black kids smoking weed, it's more of a associated with criminal behavior. So what are you guys doing to sort of kind of help remove that stigma? Or are you guys working with to kind of change that sort of mentality? I mean, I know it's because when I first got to college, I mean, and to tell the truth, from outside the United States, when you tell someone who's not from here, because in the movies and everything, and you tell them drug dealer, they typically imagine a black guy with dreads, which is not exactly true. When I went to college, I realized, well, everybody smokes weed, but you know, blacks, white, have. So what are you guys doing to kind of work, you know, and kind of change that stigma?
Since I'm not going to give a long answer to this, it's basically, it's illegal to smoke weed. In Iowa, period. So, black, white, Latino, Asian, it's illegal to smoke weed. So whatever happens when it comes down to majority of this, majority of that, I can't answer that. It's illegal to smoke weed.
But there also is a different outcome whether you're white or you're black and you smoke
Absolutely.
weed. And it boggles my mind, all the professionals I meet in this community who are lawyers, who are doctors, who are people that we generally look up to as professionals who do smoke weed.
I get that, but it's illegal to smoke weed. And that's what we got to teach our kids. It's illegal to smoke weed.
So I do have a question, though, for the group at large. We've talked about pipeline and we've talked about hiring. What about job creation and owning your own business, which you're doing, and I applaud that. Taking the power away from the hiring managers and give it to yourself. Are there avenues for folks that do have felonies? Full disclosure, I help veterans start businesses and we do it for free. So what about those pipelines?
I have 2 LLCs. You know, my first program that I did for Wayne was Growing Through Gardens. And what that was a program that introduced agriculture to urban areas. Because we lead the nation in agriculture, I thought it was important that young African Americans, Latinos, learn about agriculture. So from that, I found out that older people need help with their gardens. Now, they don't want you to mess with their flowers, but they want you to lift the shovel. So I created, you know, do it yourself with Dennis's help. People always wanted me to do the hard lifting, you know, so it was a business thing that I got based on that opportunity that Wayne gave me. And he introduced me to all these people. I want to digress a little bit. One thing, when we had a drug problem in this neighborhood, we were intentional about stopping that drug problem. That has got to be the mindset when we're dealing with this employment issue, whether it's background checks or whatnot. Employers have to be intentional. You know, principal, great place. But if you got policies that says I can't work there, no matter how many skills I get, if the policy says we can't hire you, then them skills do me no good. Even I can't create my own insurance company because they got rules and regulations to that. So it's got to be the same way. If we're intentional about getting people to work, giving people second chances, then it's going to happen. One thing that Broadlines did, we worked with DHS because we knew we were going to have people with backgrounds, and we knew you couldn't work in the hospital unless you were approved by DHS. So we built that relationship and we started that conversation. What is it going to take for you guys to approve these guys to work in healthcare? and they gave us some parameters that they could work with. Certain crimes, we don't even allow you to apply. We're not even going to give you that false hope. We're not going to have you apply and then go up here and tell you you can't work. So certain crimes, you know, if you have abuse on your record, whether it's adult, child, domestic, we don't even take your application. We let you know straight up. We don't do that. So that's the kind of things that companies, I believe, have to do. They have to look at their policies and says, is this policy really doing what it was intended to do? Is it intended to get people back to work or not?
For a young man to know they can get a business, let me explain something to y'all right quick. There's a lot of, because I'm on TV and in magazines and I'm all over Des Moines right now, you know what people come to me and say? Oh, you're doing it for yourself. We just said that they have to see it, right? We just said they have to see it. To see it, to believe it. When I was growing up, hope was in my heart. Today, with these kids, with the youth, hope, they have to see it. And then we can teach them to put it back in their heart. So yeah, I'm trying to look just as beautiful as the drug dealer. So I'm going to be on TV, magazines. I'm going to be everywhere so they can see a black man with a do-rag on his head is actually making it in a white state. And I'm teaching them, I'm saying, look, anybody can talk crazy about you if they want to. You still be who you are. I know my heart. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing this because I want to let the youth know that we're going to start another chain reaction of hope, of purpose, instead of destruction. So I want them to see me. I want them to see the black man with scars on his face and the do-rag and wear Timbs. I got gym shoes on today. But I want them to see that person. That's why I got my own building, because people were seeing me. People was believing in me. I would have never have raised money if people didn't see me, if they didn't believe in me. And you know, by me being still out here, I still got to work 20 times harder. This ain't no game.
What you stated with the substance abuse charges, there's a major disparity when it comes to your ethnicity, because there are kids I'm dealing with in the Des Moines public schools, kids caught with the same amount of substance, and black kids getting hit harder than what the Caucasian kids are being dealt with, because the system was created that way. The system is intentional. It treats black people and people of color differently. We were in a justice meeting summit at the beginning of the year or the end of last year, and there were judges on the panel that stated that they give harsher sentences to a person depending on their complexion. The darker you are, the more time you're going to spend. 19% more, a longer stay on average because of the complexion of your skin. A light-skinned person gets a lighter sentence. Okay? And that's just the way it is. They even stated that Caucasian people who have African features get a higher sentence. So it's just that same nature of that deep hatred inside the hearts of people and inside the policies that were created. I see the governor talking about the Future Ready Iowa. Beautiful plan. There still needs to be something else added to it. There needs to be an incentive to create small businesses, because in going to the Small Business Administration and going to their incubators, they're not conducive for people who are marginalized. I can't go to the bank and just say, I need 100,000. I wish I could too, you know, but I know I can't. So it's just the way, unless we are concerned about making structural changes, just like Wayne said in the back, we just up here talking.
Yeah. Well, my name is Nick Garrett. First, thanks for this discussion. And your point on policies, I'm kind of, like Isaiah said, a policy guy, served as a commissioner of insurance for 4 years under Governor Branstad. And unfortunately, there's federal laws in the insurance world that say if you have a felony, you have to go through a special process. And the best meeting I ever had was with Wayne Ford back there when he came into the office and explained this to me. So we actually had, I personally met with everybody that had a felony to hear their story. And now I'm at Farm Bureau Financial. We have some agents we're trying to sponsor through this, but it's a process in other states too, where you have to go to that commissioner, or you advocate, sponsor, mentor. So, I mean, there are other structural issues in the federal level too that just really make it difficult for Principal, Farm Bureau, Wells Fargo. So we need to look at this nationally too. So.
Nick, you're one of those people that got it done for people.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
This goes back to the question that Mo asked about perception versus reality. Coming from a different country and looking at the movies, at the media, telling us black people are bad, that the gangsters in the movie, and coming here seeing the reality that white kids, consume drugs at the same rate than black kids, but black kids get, thrown in jail more. And a lot of it has to do with the media, like Dennis mentioned earlier today. What are we doing, and what can we do to counteract that misconception that the media is trying to perpetuate?
I don't know who owns BET anymore. but I don't know if it's a black-owned business still, But when we're looking at media, mass media, who controls mass media? We have, I see Byron Allen in the Supreme Court right now about trust laws that were set in place hundreds of years ago, 200 years ago, and those laws are still there. Those policies have to be dealt with because you can make policy change, as I stated earlier. Yet I looked through an issue with professional licensing. For instance, I'm a two-time convicted felon, drug charges back in the late 80s, early 90s. And to this day, it's still like an albatross that's around my neck. Went and got bachelor's and master's, went and got licensed to teach here with the state of Iowa. And I was so happy. I remember I was in a room of about 75 people, 5 men, and I was the only person of color in the room. And every time they asked a question concerning culture, you see the whole room turn around and look at me. And oh, you're going to be great in the schools. You're going to be great. And the first thing I did once I got that license, I ran down to the Des Moines public schools with a master's degree. Resume, beautiful, everything. But then the man said, wait a minute, 22 years ago, we see you had a drug charge. And I heard somebody say Shawshank Redemption in here earlier. That person 25 years ago is not here anymore. Okay? I did what I had to do to feed my family. And I end up getting in trouble behind it. But we here, we got to do some more thinking and some more changing in policies. Some of these people getting in apprenticeship programs and getting licensed, and then they get licensed, they try to get in the program, then you got to deal with James Esquire Crow. Jim Crow's still alive. He's not dead. Jim Crow's still here in America. You might not think it. There's been some changes. There's been some topical changes that occurred in society. I'm not saying that it was as bad as it was back when my daddy or grandfather, but it's still in place. So it's up to us if we really want to make those changes, change our hearts, change our minds, innovate, and become a great nation that we really could be if we do those things.
I think he answered one of my questions was the change has to be within the system. And if that doesn't happen, America will be like this forever. That's the bottom line. And the second thing was for those who are professional who are here, I represent their employment. I myself, I immigrant from Somalia. I've been here for the last 20 years, I believe. And I work in Minnesota through social programs, youth counseling, all kind of jobs. When I moved to Iowa, I applied state jobs. One of them actually is also financial sectors. And I get a replyment email that says, we have moved with better candidate. You haven't even given me a chance to interview. How do you know the person who you selected was better than I? So those are some of the questions that I had.
I want to speak to that issue. One thing that Isaiah did at Urban Dreams, he built a situation where we interact with the police. They have midnight basketball. And a lot of you guys might not understand how important this is. If you know a person, it's harder to pull him over for a roach in his ashtray and lock him up. It's just hard for you to do that to somebody you know. And a roach, a marijuana, a piece of marijuana, you know, or a seed in his rug. So as we build these relationships with different companies, the police department, you'll see that it has an effect on the incarceration rate. Because when I talk to the police officers, I don't have to worry about getting pulled over no more. You know, but because of my dreadlocks, I remember that I drive a nice car, so when people see me, it's automatic. I know it's coming. As soon as they get behind me, they're going to pull me over. They want to see my registrations and all that. But it's important that we understand that we have to start building those relationships, because once you become familiar with me and I become familiar with you, it's going to tear it down. It might not tear it all the way down, but it's going to break it down enough where you're going to be willing to give that person another chance, or the first chance for that matter.
Quick question. First, Will, you're beautiful, so just a statement, not a question. Negus, I'd love to hear, you talked about some people that are underemployed. So you got a attorney or a doctor that's driving a forklift making 16. Sanjita, at one of the partnership meetings, we had someone in who was from Africa, I don't remember what country, doctor trying to get them into rural Iowa, but there are credentialing problems. So there's long-term strategies that you have to do, but what would you suggest, and that's only one sliver of the population we're talking about, but just as an example, how do businesses get connected with those people?
Agencies like Urban Dreams. We have a plethora of candidates who have all different types of skills. Same way with this organization right here, Evelyn Davis. They have a plethora of people who are eligible, could work. We have to look at transcript evaluation, national transcript evaluations, because we see that if I came from Romania, I wouldn't have that much problem. But since I come from Burkina Faso, and I have a doctorate, or might have those credentials, I'm denied because I'm a francophone instead of an English speaker. There, like I said, there's so many people, and it's just us seeking them. They're right in front of us. They're right in front of us. So, did that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Looking at these numbers and just wondering, has there been any effort to kind of disaggregate the data to find out what barriers specifically are driving these unemployment numbers the way they are? And you know, is it one specific barrier that is driving it? I see that the conversation kind of immediately went to incarceration and ex-offender. And I don't want to necessarily paint that narrative if that's not what the narrative is of my community. What is driving these numbers to be? Is it bias from the employers? What is the main motivation behind this 16.7 and 10.5%?
Confirmation bias. That is the issue. Confirmation bias. I am accustomed to being around people who look like me, think like me, read the same books that I read, go to church or whatever like me. And that's who we get, because if we don't associate with other people, Isaiah and we do something at Urban Dreams. I have a consultancy group as well, Rudison Consultancy Group, LLC. And we deal with cultural competency training and cross communications because it's needed, because the dominant culture is saying there are some people that we don't know nothing about. My brother's from Somalia, my other brother's from somewhere in Senegal, another a francophone, that's just what I said, from Senegal. And because they sound different, they're just as black. We're all black. But the thing, they come from another country, yet we're still akin. And because of this indelible thing that covers our body is our chocolate colored skin, we stick out everywhere we go.
Just to kind of confirm what Negus was speaking to, we've done a lot of work with the state around minority and unemployment outreach. And as we did a tour around the state, one of the main things that came back from that was networks. And so when people say they can't find the talent, a lot of the disconnect we found from talking to people within the community that are unemployed and have these issues every time they try to apply for a job was simply connection to networks. And a lot of those things, those barriers are faced because a lot of times you think about hiring somebody, you pick up the phone and you call somebody from your network. 60%, you know it being in HR, right? So if 60% of the time you're making a phone call from your network and your network is already predominantly white, then you get the same hire. So one of the things as a company, as a HR, as a team, you have to start to think about, okay, how do we make connections to networks outside of how we regularly operate and who we regularly talk to? That is one of the main barriers that we saw going across the state, was simply just making people aware of the job opportunities. You start with the youth even at an early age. That's why it's so important for young people to have an opportunity before they're 21 to have their first job. You talk about the barriers of employment. As we did that one economy report, you see here within these 10 neighborhoods that they've identified as the urban core per se, where you have your most diverse pool of people within the whole state, you automatically start off with a 24% disparity of job opportunities here in this area. So a lot of people like to live by where they can go and just within 5-10 minutes to be at work. Most of the people within this space have to travel 20-30 minutes, the multiple bus rides sometimes to get there. So networking, access to the actual opportunities at an age that can actually help them to build the long-term career opportunities that a lot of us, I can guarantee if we polled the room, most of you remember your first job. And then from your first job, how that started to build, right? Within the African American community, where we see a lot of times those first jobs, again, don't start until 21, down the road, not 14, not 15. So that career exploration and networking is key, outside of all the other potential barriers that people face growing up in the communities that we live and come from. Expand your networks. I can't stress that enough. That was the number one reason people are just not even knowing about what opportunities exist. There's so many kids that live on this side of 235 that have no idea of the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies right across the highway. So how do you help build that connection? And starting early. Again, to negate some of these other things that they're faced with and they see every day.
That's good. Great point.
I just want to say one thing right quick before you keep going. I want to make this very clear that we know that there's a lot of white folks who just love people. We know that every white folk out here ain't prejudiced. A lot of white people just don't understand the culture. We know they're not prejudiced. So for all the white folks who just love people, speak up a little louder.
So
I just wanted to.
This will be the last question, and then. All right. All right. So let's do this transition real quick. Isaiah's coming up to speak next. Thank the panelists. We'll clap for them afterwards, and then afterwards, Sanjita will come up and speak. But I thank you guys again from the bottom of my heart for being here today.
I just 1 minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to add to the question about what has caused the disparities, and a lot of it is just the legacy of segregation, even here within Des Moines. So if you think about a couple generations ago, the opportunities for African Americans in the community, what type of job they could have was limited, right? As it was across the country. Also thinking about what type of transfer of wealth happened from generation to generation. If you couldn't own property, or you can only own property in certain neighborhoods, that impacts it as well. So you see this history of segregation just trickling down, and we're still trying to come out from under it. That's why it's not only the joblessness rate, but it's also high school graduation rates, it's who's going to college. And if you think about if your great-grandparent owned a house and you use that type of wealth to get student loans to go to college, you can see how that transfer of wealth really impacts the community. I want to add one other thing. I had a mentor that said, if you want to hire someone from a diverse background, or you want to hire an African American, just do it. Just don't stop searching for that open position until you find someone who will add to the diversity of your environment or your company. And I think it's as simple as that. I've been involved in hiring processes where we've had an African American who was qualified, but people just kind of were like, oh, but this other applicant, maybe they went to a school that they admired a little bit more. And so I think when you don't place that as a priority, it's never going to change. So that would be my advice.
Can I talk now? I just have a couple of challenges in, when you speak out loud, sometimes you have to know that it's not going to be popular opinion. What I would say to all of to everyone here who has the opportunity to hire, like she said, make sure you interview or make that a compliance on your compliant list, that I must have a diverse and inclusive candidate pool before I hire, and make that a compliance issue for yourself and everyone else around that, right? And then what else I would say is in corporate America, where we're trying to make diversity numbers happen, right? Own your black and brown superpower. And once you get there, bring in someone that looks like you, and don't be afraid to hire over you. And that would be true for faces like mine too. Don't be afraid to hire a black or brown person in a position that is over you. I think we all face that challenge anyway. Are we willing to promote someone over us? But make that a compliance issue for yourself. I think that's a challenge we can all try to meet.
When I think about a phrase that my grandmother really embedded into my head, and she said, squeaky wheels get oiled. And working with the Des Moines Public Schools and knowing some of my sisters and brothers' struggles who are highly educated and highly qualified, I am one who is that squeaky wheel to have those policies changed. And they are working on them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. I'll be very quick.
thinking about what a lot of the panelists have said, my daughter, when she was 14, Hy-Vee was hiring at that time. I begged them to hire her, and they did. They hired her. And when she was 18, she went to Wells Fargo. She barely had an interview because they saw that she had 4 years of work experience at 18. So to your point, next, Mr. Desir was saying, and a couple other people were saying about hiring people who you know. Over the summer, I was working for the Office of Interoperability through the Sheriff's Department, and they were getting a new radio thingy-mabob. And so they hired us to test the frequencies of their transmitters. I was getting $15 an hour. Pretty good little part-time job. But the people who were out doing the testing were getting $50 an hour, getting their hotel paid, getting their food paid, and getting mileage reimbursement. I didn't hear about that job. They were saying they were telling people who they knew. I would have taken that job, even though I don't like to drive, but $50 and all that paid. So, and lastly, to the employers, Evelyn K. Davis and Oak Ridge Neighborhood, those are the two that I know, have summer programs where they hire young people to work through the summer to get experience. If you are an employer, be a part of that program. Get these young people experience so that when they get to be 18, they have this wonderful resume. I've done this and I've done that, and you never know. One plant, one waters, and they get an increase. What if you're the organization that inspires them, oh, I want to go into insurance? Or you're the organization that says, shows them something, oh, I want to be an electrician. They have to get that experience somewhere. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. All right, one more round of applause for the panel up here. They did a great job. You don't got to leave. You can stay. You can stay. You're looking beautiful in front of the PowerPoint, right? All right. So I'm just going to give 2 quick best practices that you can take back and use at your business today. All right. 1, we talked about, right? Have a pool of more than one person of color or woman or marginalized community in your hiring pool. All right. Harvard Business Review, pretty legit, right? I mean, this is not information that we're just making up here. But 79 times greater chance of hiring a woman if you have at least 2 in a pool. And that doesn't matter the size of the pool. If it's 3, if it's 30, 79 times greater for female candidates, 194 times greater for people of color, right? So you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges, right? When you have one person. As I don't even want to say the comment, but you know what comment I'm thinking about. Come on now. So here's one best practice, right? And I'll have Sanjita send these slides out as well since we're running out of time on these things. Second one, we talked about blind hiring, okay? There's been multiple studies done that 2 resumes bearing the exact same content but with names sounding Black or African or unfamiliar will not get the job or get 50% less callbacks than the person that is looking at the exact same resume. Here, I have it here for you. Sorry. We need to make sure that when we're looking at a resume like this of Jack Jones and a resume of Jamal Jackson, that if we have these stereotypes, these confirmation biases, the networks that we're talking about, where we feel more comfortable hiring or calling back Jack Jones for the interview and not Jamal Jackson, that you guys implement a blind hiring process in your organization. Even zip codes matter these days. I live in 14. I know sometimes if I were to send my resume out and they say, oh, you live in 14, we know all kind of dog whistles that they use for 14, right? Right in the neighborhood you're in right now. The hood, the ghetto. Those are all dog whistles for racist comments, by the way. So if you hear that stuff at your office as well, nip that in the bud right away, right? Speak up. Like Will said, people out there that are advocates for our community, be an advocate. Be the squeaky wheel. You have to do it. So any questions on anything of these best practices? I can send these out. They're quick, yes.
Just one reason on the Harvard Business Review, profitability is why you want to hire for diversity. You will make more money, your company will have more revenue, you will get more, I mean, that's the in your business. Go to HBR. You can go to Harvard Business Review and see some of the other papers that are on there about why you want to hire for diversity. It will lead to more profitability of your organization. Diversity matters just because it's the right thing to do, but you can have more money in your company, which is probably why you're in business. So,
1 minute. We're on time. Thank you for coming out. Have a good day.